Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. My name is Martin Warwick and I'm talking with John McGee, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at GE, that's General Electric Software. John, welcome and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
General Electric, an enormous, huge company of considerable repute. Can you begin by telling us what GE understands the industrial internet to be? Is it IoT in the way we've begun to think about it and accept it as being, or is it something else?
Sure. So you can think of the industrial Internet of Things as really a specialized subset of the broader Internet of Things. So the ideas are the same: connecting to machines, devices, collecting data, being able to optimize that. And at GE, we're very focused on the technologies and infrastructure for the IoT in the industrial world. So we have solutions that do everything from managing hospital equipment to jet engines to subsea oil and gas infrastructure to grid technology, all aimed at collecting data and being able to optimize the infrastructure, the industrial infrastructure, so that it works better, so it's up and available more, and so that we can get the optimizations that really drive business value.
How far along the road are we in terms of the industrial Internet of Things, in terms of connectivity? There's always a lot of hype around telecommunications and networking.
Yep.
How much of it is now reality?
Well, it's becoming more real every day. I mean, we have for many years now been connecting to high-value assets like jet engines and so on. What's happening now is the economics of connectivity and being able to collect data from more devices are now making it possible to connect to all kinds of devices that were previously unconnected, dumb devices, if you will. So that means now that we can start to instrument more and more of the world's global industrial infrastructure, which can yield all kinds of different optimizations, cost savings, more fuel efficiency, and so on.
Okay. Now, is IoT a threat, do you think, or an opportunity as far as the service providers are concerned? I've spoken to several of them, and they seem to be sort of a bit ambivalent about it.
Well, I think most of our service provider partners are very excited about the potential, because what you're basically talking about is more connectivity, more networked connections, whether those are wireless, wired, satellite, whatever it is. We certainly, for our solutions, need connectivity, and we partner with a number of service provider partners to deliver that. But there's also the potential for new services to be delivered. So for service providers to be actively part of the value chain of delivering insights to their customers that come from the data that gets collected from all this connectivity, so that they can optimize their businesses.
So you mentioned working with service providers, and it's obviously a big opportunity. Can you give us some more examples? Sure.
We have partnerships with many of the large service providers to provide connectivity globally. So GE is a very global company. We need to be able to, wherever we are in the world, tell our customers that we can provide a cost-effective and high-quality connectivity solution. We have a platform for building industrial internet solutions that developers use called Predix, and we're now partnering with service providers. So for example, SoftBank in Japan is using Predix to take solutions for asset performance management into the Japanese market. And we see a lot of potential as the industrial internet continues to grow and expand for service providers to participate in that way. So for GE, being a global company, and the world is literally your oyster, there's opportunity everywhere. Absolutely, yeah. And some of the emerging markets and remote areas are really starting to embrace these technologies very effectively. So it's a global market, and the industrial internet has to play in all of those spaces. You see a lot of, or I see a lot, no doubt you do as well, research work and surveys and so on, which say there's going to be so many billion devices, whether it's the industrial internet or the ordinary Internet of Things in domestic circumstances and enterprise circumstances, saying there'll be so many billion connected by 2020. Yep. Have you read those figures, and do you agree with them? We've read them. We've also done our own economic analysis of the global infrastructure, and we are definitely talking about billions of connected devices by 2020. We're well on the way, and again, we're focused on the industrial aspect of that, so everything from connected cars to locomotives to healthcare equipment to smart grids and so on can be connected. You are talking about billions of devices, and the more connectivity we get, the more data we can collect, and the more analytics we can leverage to drive business insights that can really optimize that industrial infrastructure. So that's the opportunity. Now, my company, TelecomTV, we just conducted an IoT survey of our own. Two biggest barriers to IoT rollout are deemed to be security and the lack of what's described as a cohesive ecosystem.
What do you make of that? Do you agree that those are the main problems getting in the way of it?
Yeah, I think anytime you're talking about connectivity, security is a critical aspect of that. And when you're dealing with the industrial IoT world, you're talking about critical infrastructure, whether it's transportation or hospital equipment or energy. So security is paramount. And that's one of the reasons GE has developed its own Predix platform, so that we can embed security from the devices, the machines themselves, through the connections to the cloud and all the data management and protection and everything. So it's a critical point, and we do think it's very manageable. I think on the ecosystem side that you mentioned, that is an important one. I think companies are looking for some kinds of interoperability between different vendor solutions. They're looking for an ecosystem so they don't have to roll their own and build their own technologies here. And that's growing, and we're certainly engaging in building out GE's ecosystem around our Predix platform. We're also participating in organizations like the Industrial Internet Consortium. So it was founded last year by GE and a few others, and there's now over 150 different organizations, vendors from the technology world, but also academia, governments, and so on. So this is a place for different players in the ecosystem to come together on things like test beds, on security approaches, and so on, which I think will help facilitate a lot of the need, the requirement there to have an ecosystem that's interoperable for customers.
What about the thorny issue of standardization and regulation? NFV is predicated on a different sort of, well, entirely differently from the telecom systems that we've known of old, where you begin with standards and regulations and then you fit everything to it. The world for the service providers has been turned upside down, and now they are applying things, and the regulations and the standards such as they are come later. How important do you think that is, and what effect is it having on the emergence and the growth of IoT?
I think there's certain regulatory requirements, like data sovereignty requirements, that data remain in the boundaries of a specific government and so on, and those are just the reality of the world we live in. So we understand that you have to do business globally, you have to adhere to those kinds of regulations. I think more on the communications side, there's general kind of agreement and consensus and a little more openness there in terms of being able to transmit traffic over different networks, and so that hasn't really been an inhibitor thus far.
Finally then, usually ask people to look forward, and I know it's very difficult in industries like this because things are moving so fast, and I was talking yesterday to someone looking 5 years ahead, which I think is a bit far, but looking, let's say, 12 months ahead, how different is the industrial Internet of Things going to be?
Well, I think it's continuing to grow in adoption and the way people are deploying these solutions. I think one big enabler that's really going to be a factor in the next 12 months is the cloud. So the cloud model enables a lot of solutions that just wouldn't be possible without that approach. And so I think you're going to continue to see, especially in the industrial world, adoption of cloud technologies, which makes it possible to connect to assets that previously couldn't be connected, to manage data for companies that don't have big IT departments. So that's going to continue to accelerate, and I think that this is going to be the year of cloud adoption in the industrial internet space.
Very interesting. John McGee, CMO at GE Software, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.